There's a story this morning that is of utmost importance. And frankly, I believe we in media have apparently missed the significance of this story for our well-being as a country, as a society, and the impact it will have if we do not address this problem. And you don't start to address a problem until you recognize you have a problem. And it has to do with the results of the 2022 census. And the story of the census is not the problems we have had with the 2022 census, but the findings. And the findings are suggesting that as a nation, as a society, we are having declining birth rates and population growth to a point now that it is quite a major policy imperative. What the statistics are revealing is that if we do not cauterize and turn this around, then we will have an existential threat as a viable society in 20-30 years. To cut to the chase, we're not reproducing at a rate that secures the viability of the country 20-30 years from now. Our women and our men are not having enough children at a rate that is sustainable as a viable society. And there are several reasons for that we can discuss. But at the end of the day, we have to find a way to cauterize this. Yes, we have to find a way to cauterize this. And we in media have to play a part. Yes. The story was carried, but how it's reported, frankly, is distressing. The Observer chose to put it on page 9. More deaths, fewer births. Statin census reveals slowest population growth rate in over 50 years. Slowest population growth rate in more than 50 years. That's part of the chilling findings of the statistics from Statin. The Gleaner has a story on its front page, but look what they chose to take it from. Late delivery. Totally missing the essence of it. The fact that the census results are late is part of the story, but not the lead of the story. Thankfully, I noticed Nationwide led with it yesterday. Come on, man. We have to have a greater sense of what is important for us and guide. Yeah? Help to focus attention. So, the data, the findings, are essentially telling us that over the decade between 2011 and 2022, the population grew by less than 3%. And between 1970 and 2022. The population has averaged an annual growth rate of 0.24%, less than half of a percentage point. 0.24% it has grown between 1970 and 2022. That's 52 years. And it is pretty well known the population growth is below what is called a replacement rate of 2.1, meaning we should be growing at a rate of at least 2.1% for us to be regenerating, to keep up with what we need to be doing as people. We're going to have more on this, but let me bring you Siobhan Campbell's report first.
As of 2022, Statin estimates that Jamaica's total population stood at 2,774,538 persons. This was just over 76,000 more individuals than the data collected in 2011. It's a growth rate of 2.8%. According to Statin's Director of Census's Demographic and Social Statistics Division, Stacey Ann Robinson, this is the country's lowest birth rate and population growth in 53 years.
The average annual growth rate of 0.24% was the lowest over the period 1970 to 2022. The growth rate observed was influenced by a 42.2% decline in the births, moving from 747,788 to 432,018 over the intercensal periods 1970 to 1982 to 2011 to 2020, and it was further impacted by population losses due to deaths moving from 188,993 to 236,687.
For comparison, from 1970 to 1982, the population grew by over 341,000 individuals. It was 227,000 for the period 1991 to 2001. It fell to below 100,000 for the first time between 2001 and 2011. Absolute growth for that period was just over 91,000 individuals. Statin Director General Leisha Delati-Bader says at the current trend, Jamaica is on its way to population decline.
We're seeing where births are declining, and that has been the trend over several decades. We're also seeing where deaths are increasing, and particularly we're also seeing where net migration has declined. When you put all of those factors together, we end up with a population that is growing, albeit at a much slower rate. And over time, what we have been seeing over the several decades of censuses is that the population growth rate is slowing down. This is very important because it means that if we continue on this path, we will ultimately get to a declining population. And this is an important takeaway from the results of the population and housing census that we are presenting today.
In terms of parish, St. Catherine registered the highest population growth at 26,500. This was followed by Clarendon and Kingston and St. Andrew, which added 13,500 and 10,500 respectively over the decade. At the absolute lowest end is Hanover, with only 247 individuals added over the period. St. Thomas was not far behind, at just 583. Siobhan Campbell for Nationwide News.
Thank you, Siobhan. And it's 14 minutes after 10 o'clock. George Davis joins me in the studio. When you see me in here, it means that something is happening. What is it, George?
Morning, Cliff. Morning, listeners. So, last evening I interrupted Siobhan and Sanjay to tell them about that policeman, that constable who took his own life in St. Elizabeth just after 5 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. And I have similar news this morning. It is our understanding that a student, a female student, at the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, I'm being told at the Sir George Alleyne Hall, took her own life this morning. And we understand that senior management, the police, first responders are all gathering at the location as we speak. So that's the information. You know, as I was trying to verify and put together before coming in here, I said to myself, I'm wondering if reporting has anything to do with the numbers we're hearing. And of course, it's a ridiculous thought because we have to report. But Cliff, it's troubling. But that is
like there's a spate.
Yes, I hesitated to use the word spate yesterday, but I think I have nowhere else to go but to say spate now. So that's the latest report. Not sure of her age, but she was a resident at George Alleyne Hall, and it's understood she took her life this morning, and the relevant personnel led by the university's management, police, first responders are at the scene.
Do we know what year?
No, I didn't get that or what her program of study was.
Yeah.
Just the gender confirmed and where it happened and what the response from the university initially has been or is being. The response is ongoing as we speak.
So, just to repeat, a female student
Yes.
at the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies. The name of the hall?
George Alleyne.
The George Alleyne Hall.
Is suspected to have taken her own life today.
Thank you, George.
All right.
I suppose we'll have more in the midday news, the world at noon. All right, let's go to the break and come back with more on this census. So, according to the findings of the census of 2022, the average number per year of births, that is falling precipitously as well. Between 1982 and 1991, on average for those 10 years, we had more than 56,000 babies being born. That fell to 39,274 on average between 2011 and 2022. That's a fall of more than 30%. Yes. The findings also say average annual deaths increased by almost, rounded up to the nearest whole number, 45% for that period, from nearly 15,000 to more than 21,000. Yeah. And this is something we have to examine. And there are some well-known reasons. Yeah. There was a time when the birth rate was, or the fertility rate was too high. And then we did that most effective birth control, not birth control, it was a public education campaign. 2 is better than too many. Wasn't that the slogan? 2 is better than too many? Yeah? That was done in the late 1960s, at the beginning of the 1970s. Right? And that was so effective. And then, subsequent to that, we found that our women were choosing to delay having children by virtue of the fact that they were advancing career-wise, they were being better educated, and as a result, not the fertility rate, the birth rate. Fertility is another matter. The birth rate was declining. Yeah? Women were just simply saying, listen, I am going to take care of my education, advance my career. You can let us delay that. Yesterday we were discussing this in the in our daily production meeting. And a member of the team pointed out that they were in discussion with some pharmacists recently who said that what they now see as pharmacists, after some major entertainment lifestyle events, which normally create an environment for copulation. Let me put it that way. Like the big carnival, dream weekends, those things where people feel good, you drink and have a good time, you wine and dine. Yes, you wine and dine. And then after things happen, that they would see a surge in demand for Postinor. Yes. They will have to tell me more about these things, because I sat there and I'm out of that demographic group. But the surge in demand for Postinor, yes. So any slip up that took place, you dealt with it. I gather we had a lady, the Director General from Statin this morning. We're going to have some more from her on what these findings suggest. The other issue relating to this is the census of 2022 has had a fair amount of problems. And as I said, that's the angle the Gleaner chose to take it from this morning. Yeah. And I suppose there's possibly a level of lack of trust in the data. Yeah, but Statin, the Statistical Institute, is defending the methodology they use to ensure the accuracy of the 2022 census. Yes, here's Shalois Michael's report on that.
The Population and Housing Census, which is usually conducted every 10 years, was last published in 2011. The latest census began in September 2022. It was scheduled to be completed by December that year. But the process of collecting data from citizens in all 14 parishes has been marred by several challenges. Statin faced repeated issues in recruiting and retaining data collectors. It also had to contend with incomplete data sets and the inaccessibility of gated communities. A new release date of March 2023 was set, but the process was again delayed. Director General of Statin, Lisha Delatibader, addressed the issues of the delays at a media briefing on Wednesday. She says the COVID-19 pandemic and other operational challenges impacted the census, but she was quick to point out that those challenges also affected other countries in the region.
Now, while our experience with the 2022 census was unprecedented for us, it actually mirrored international trends. Globally, national statistics offices had to contend with the impact of the pandemic, but as well, we were contending with heightened privacy concerns and rapid digital transformation, which presented unprecedented obstacles to traditional enumeration. To quote the United Nations Economic and Social Council, the 2020 census round faced challenges primarily due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and to a lesser degree financial constraints, technical difficulties, and political and social insecurity.
The issues that plagued the data collection have left many questioning the veracity and usefulness of the exercise. But the Director General says the model-based approach used by Statin to ensure the accuracy of the census was in keeping with best practices and vetted by independent specialists, both locally and internationally.
At the end of the process, when we looked at the modeled estimates, we looked at the data that we collected from the short forms, from the sweep teams, from the rapid enumeration, we realized that we had population counts for 70% of the EDs in Jamaica, and that we only needed to use the modeled estimates for approximately 30% of those EDs. Now, what we did was that we took the information that we collected and validated it with information on the ground as well as other administrative records, and that is what Ms. Robinson will be presenting here today.
Statin says it has completed the data collection exercise and will be releasing the findings in phases. Shaloy Smichael for Nationwide News.
Thank you, Shaloy. Well, according to a communication specialist, Raji Danvers, it is all about fertility following security. Fertility following security. That's how he reacted to the report about the worrying decline in the rate at which the country's population has been growing.
I don't even say that we are against families. I just don't think that Jamaica is ready for us, because having a child shouldn't necessarily feel like an act of delivery. I think the society that is around us should really have that ability to show us that, hey, when we have a child, things will be better. So in other words, I think that fertility follows security, and that security be it social, financial, or emotional. I think that is the answer that people want.
According to Mr. Danvers, there's a clear path to improving the numbers.
If fertility follows security, the nation don't have to beg for more children. We'll be having children after children after children. We'll have an overflow, because that is what a comfortable society gives us. A society that allows us to feel comfortable to be able to have children. And those are what I think the policy shift should move from a conversation or a campaign for having more births to really fixing the conditions that make birth feel less like a burden. I think that's where we should really look at it.
He has a point. He has a very good point. Yes? People would be incentivized and encouraged to have more if they can take care of them and see their own well-being progressing, yeah, with more. It's almost time for the break. After the break, some good numbers coming from the grade 4 grade 4 literacy and numeracy tests. And then I'm going to share with you some of the reactions from the people who did the census at the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. That's after the break. The head of Statin is the Director General, Leisha de Latiboudiere. She pointed out at the media briefing yesterday that the country's population growth rate has been declining consistently. Listen to this, since the 1960s.
It should be noted that the growth rate in the population has been steadily declining over several decades. So in previous censuses, it has always, every census that we've released since the 1960s actually has resulted in the lowest growth rate, because of course what we're seeing over time is that births are declining and that deaths increase over time, but not in a significant way, and that net migration also does not compensate for the loss in the number of births that we're having. So this is consistent that we've seen over several decades of censuses.
She also pointed out the ripple effects, yes, that this declining population growth rate will have on society.
If we continue on this trajectory, we will end up with a declining population. And I'm sure there's been a lot of public debate, or you may be familiar with some of the discussions in other countries that have already gotten to population decline, like Japan or some of the European countries. When the population starts to decline, then of course we will not have enough labor for production. We will not have enough working age population to support the dependents. These are all the dependent population, that's the persons who are too young to work or too old to work. There are several implications of a population that is declining, and it is something that has to be effectively managed.
And I think that is where we need to pay some attention. Yes, because it has, as I said at the beginning, policy implications that we have to start thinking about and preparing for. Because if you have a declining growth rate, as she says, you're going to have fewer working age Jamaicans to sustain levels of production that we need to grow, generate wealth, and take care of our needs. Yeah? And even more so, when you have a declining population in terms of growth rate, the people who are living are the aging ones. Yeah. The aging ones. Yeah? And the aging ones come out of the working groups of the country. What it means, as you have an aging population, certain things become more needed. Health facilities, the public health system. Yeah, the older you get, the more likely it is that you're going to need health services. Yeah. It means that issues to do with housing and home care become more important. Yeah. The welfare system is going to come under greater stress. Yeah. So those who have the job of doing the analysis and the policy implications that flow from it, people like the Planning Institute of Jamaica have to play a big role. People in government. Yes, there's going to be a greater demand in those areas if we don't turn it around. And Mrs. Delatibudier says strategies, she called them strategies yesterday, are now needed to tackle the issues that are going to be looming.
This is something that I do believe warrants further investigation and further discussion, a national discussion around what are we going to be doing as a population, and how are we going to be addressing what we're seeing in terms of the current trends. There have been countries who have managed to successfully address some of these challenges. The question is now, what will be the strategy?
That's the Director General of Statin, Delisha Delatibudier. No, let me get her name right. It's Lisha Delatibudier. She's the Director General of Statin. All right, on to better news now. This morning we woke up to some good news from education. 70% of the grade 4 students who sat the grade 4 primary exit profile for 2025 mastered numeracy. 70% mastered numeracy. That is significant. And the percentage who mastered literacy, 67%. That is very good. We're not there yet, yes, because we'd like it to be 100%. But the fact that we're up to 70% for numeracy, which has been our nightmare, yeah, means that our grade 4 children are doing better at the math, yeah. At the other end of the spectrum, 1.4% are at the non-mastery level in literacy. Only 1.4% at the non-mastery level. And when you break that out, this translates to 475 of the more than 33,000 students who sat the exam. Yeah? The Education Minister, Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon, says the results demonstrate that the transformation agenda in education is working.
This year's results show significant gains in both literacy and numeracy across Jamaica's schools. And I am so proud of our children, our teachers and principals, and our parents. These results reflect the extraordinary work being done every day by our teachers, principals, literacy coordinators, and of course our students. These results are proof that our education transformation agenda is working. As minister, I'm very proud. When we invest in our teachers and support our students early, we lay the foundation for lifelong success.
She does concede, though, that there's more work to be done. According to Dr. Morris Dixon, the Education Ministry will be reinforcing several strategic interventions to sustain the momentum, as the goal remains full literacy and numeracy for every child, regardless of their background or circumstance.
To build on this progress, the ministry will continue to strengthen several key initiatives, including the National School Learning and Intervention Plan, tactical coaching for literacy and numeracy teachers, literacy and numeracy camps in Christmas and Easter breaks, data-driven school improvement sessions to tailor support where it is needed most. We'll also be highlighting and sharing best practices from our top performing schools, ensuring that excellence spreads across the entire system.
Good. So we're at 70 and 67% for numeracy and literacy. Yeah. Next year, we must improve that better. Improve that to better numbers, higher numbers. Yeah. Now, yesterday we brought your attention to what's happening at St. Anne's Primary in West Kingston. No electricity for 3 weeks. Well, I'm happy to report this morning that the power is back at St. Anne's Primary. Yeah. The acting principal, Trishana Mitchell Francis, confirmed with us this morning that the electricity has been restored. Yeah. And classes are likely to resume very, very quickly. Yeah. Now that the power is back. Good news on that. And thanks to all the persons involved, including the Member of Parliament yesterday, Desmond McKenzie. He told us yesterday in a brief interview that part of the problem with the provision of electricity at St. Anne's was the fact that members of the surrounding areas were stealing electricity from the school. Is it a case where the people are stealing electricity there?
That possibility exists, Cliff. I will not deny that. And this is why the discussions that I've been having with Minister Morris Dixon, who has been very, very accommodative about the schools in West Kingston. I have some of the oldest schools in my constituency. The years and tears of it has been telling. So school will be back in full session by Monday because of the work that is being done now to put in this generator.
And I need to make it absolutely clear now that the power is back. Yeah, it's a generator. The generator that you heard the minister, the MP speak of there, that is the source of the light that is now back at St. Anne's. They still have the fundamental problem of fixing whatever they need to fix there or to remove the ropes to get the power restored at the school. So they're now getting power from a generator. Thank you so much for that clarification. I think I have to stop there. There's a story on the front page of the Gleaner this morning that I think we will have to grapple with because it is becoming a serious and dangerous issue now. The Trump administration is stepping up its fight against Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. It has been bombing boats in Caribbean waters, boats that, according to the U.S., are narco drug traffickers. Yes? And they have been attacking them. 5 such incidents over the last few weeks, 27 people dead in Caribbean waters. And the lead story on the Gleaner's front page this morning is worth some examination and discussion. Dangerous and horrible. Former PM P.J. Patterson decries U.S. drone strikes on vessels in Caribbean waters, warns attacks erode idea of region as a zone of peace. And Here again, I know some of you like to think, oh, it has nothing to do with me. It does. Jamaican fishermen, fisher folk, yeah, go up and down Caribbean waters. Yeah, they could become collateral damage if one of their fishing boats is mistakenly destroyed. Yeah, we have had an incident of that already, according to Colombia. And I think it is urgent now that CARICOM meet and decide what is its position re what President Trump and his Navy are doing in Caribbean waters as they go after Mr. Maduro's regime in Venezuela. We like to think we live in a zone of peace, the Caribbean, but now this is war, because it seems to me that America, Trump has made it clear yesterday, he has now authorized the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, to go on the ground in Venezuela, yeah, in pursuit of his removal of the Maduro regime. What does this mean for us in the Caribbean? And there are clear lines of division in the Caribbean. The Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, she has come out and say, go Trump, go. Kill them. And that's what she said literally. She says, go after all of them. Kill them violently. Now, is that the position of the other members of the Caribbean community? And I think this is where our Prime Minister now, as chairman of CARICOM, yeah, he has an issue here that he has to deal with as chairman of the regional grouping. He needs to convene a meeting very, very quickly so that the region can hammer out a position on this, so that it can act, hopefully, with one voice to speak to Mr. Trump and Mr. Rubio, the Secretary of State.